Hello everybody, today I am going to be reviewing A Ghost Story. This film was written and directed by David Lowery. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it because this is a film I was a little bit torn about when I first walked out of the theater. I kind of struggled to formulate my opinion on whether I liked it or not. I thought I liked it, but I just kind of needed to sleep on it a little bit. And this is one of those movies I think that would really benefit from you seeing it a second time. I would like to see it a second time for sure. It's a very interesting, very meditative, very cosmic, and at times kind of awkward and funny take on the ghost story, which we often associate more with like the paranormal horror genre. And this film is less about things that go bump in the night, so to speak, and it's more about how the paranormal relates to death and how it relates to existence. And this movie mainly talks about the passage of time, or at least those are the themes within the film, and kind of our attachment to memories and all of the material world that eventually will waste away. And I find the perspective very interesting. It's very ironic because you're getting a story that is about confronting your mortality and confronting how fleeting existence is, but you're getting it not from somebody who is alive, but from somebody who has already passed on, who is a ghost. So basically this movie is about a couple, and the two are played by Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck. They live a very sort of tranquil lifestyle together in this house, and very early on in the film, Casey Affleck's character dies. And he spends the rest of the movie with a sheet over his head and these little eye holes. It's got a very sort of childlike interpretation of the basic symbol for being a ghost. And he's really unable to speak. He's unable to interact with anybody in the physical world. He remains in the house that he and Rooney lived in, and he stays there haunting it for what seems like hundreds of years, far after she has left the house, and different families and people have moved in and out over the years. And not only is the premise ironic because of what I just mentioned, but I think the film, that's part of what it's doing. It's exploring the irony of humans, how we linger, how we struggle to comprehend loss, and how it's so hard for us to move on. I love the way that they tackled the idea of memory here, because in the film and just in life in general, we look at a lot of our materials, our possessions that we have, and those things trigger memories in this very sensory sort of way. And sometimes the materials that we have are more powerful than the actual people that we had the memories with. So it is a lot about the tangible and how effective that can be for the mind. And when you really think about the ghost motivations, because the more I kind of sat back and really thought about it, the more a lot of it made sense to me. But if you think about the ghost, he goes right back into the house after he dies and stays there and watches Rooney move on with her life slowly. And when she finally moves out of the house, he doesn't go with her. You know, he could have followed her, right? But he doesn't, because he is rooted in that house and the memories that they hold, the history, as he says. It's a sentimental sort of thing. In terms of the look of the film, it has a very kind of hazy, nostalgic feeling of kind of ethereal intimacy. It reminds me a lot of like a Terrence Malick movie. And I think a lot of people have probably compared this film to a Malick film, like a film like Tree of Life, for example. The score is also really haunting. I really, really enjoyed it. Very beautiful. And the aspect ratio is very interesting. It feels very closed in, which kind of works when you think about the themes of the ghost feeling very trapped by the confines of his surroundings. But I think it also has a feeling of like a Polaroid camera, like snapshots or very old home movies. So it's all playing into that nostalgia that I mentioned that is very appealing to us. We are all very obsessed with nostalgia. But, you know, the whole idea of the film, the message is that time never stops, that things change. And that is a really, really painful realization for humans, that we are only a speck in a timeline and that we don't matter in the big scheme of things. But we have this unrealistic need to hold on to the things that are going to disappear. There are interesting ways in which they show the passage of time reflected, both in terms of content of the story, as well as a lot of metaphors visually, kind of symbolically. When Rooney moves out of the house, a new family moves in, a Hispanic family, a mother and her children, and the ghost doesn't speak Spanish and feels very kind of hostile and because this is unfamiliar. These are unfamiliar people that he doesn't know. I mean, you know, after I watched the film, I thought about that scene a lot, and you could see it almost as a social commentary, not only on the passage of time, but also the kind of shifting demographics in America and how that might affect a white protagonist. But I'm just throwing that out there as an idea because I don't want to get into the specifics, the political specifics, because I don't want people up my ass about it. A lot of you are very easily triggered. But this film, what I also like about the way they show time is that it has a circular timeline. Like, this isn't a linear film. Once the ghost kind of takes hold, once the ghost becomes the protagonist, that's where you start to see it starts from his death and then goes into the future and then back in time, all the way up until he meets Rooney and, you know, blah, blah, blah. This does two very key things. One of them is that it allows us to see how meaning changes when the timeline is broadened, when we have a bigger perspective and everything is put in a greater context. That time is relative, that the spiritual world doesn't really have time. When things aren't linear, and we see that in all kinds of different films, that allows us to sort of be taken out of our comfort zone. We are so used to the arc, the beginning, middle, and end, that sense of control. But when we have this, we can experience the world in a different way. And that's what the ghost has to learn. The ghost is very much kind of like us, taking a back seat and watching everything unfold without being able to interact. And he didn't learn that the first time around. He didn't complete the hero's journey, so he had to start over before the house was even built. He needed to see time in a greater context so that he can ultimately let go of needing to exist so badly in some sort of tangible way. Some of the scenes in the film are very interesting, the way they're shot. Some of them are very dreamy in that montage way, like you'd see in a Terrence Malick film, that really reflects how we replay memories in our own minds. But there are also, it's contrasted with very, very long takes where it seems like nothing is happening. And okay, when I was watching the film, that was very frustrating. But the more that I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe that's kind of a necessary part of it. It's meant to feel frustrating, and it's meant to feel eerie and awkward and, yeah, even boring, because this ghost is just going to be sitting here dwindling for years and years and years. And that feeling of being stuck and unable to evolve is agonizingly monotonous. I know that's quite a paradox what I said, but it makes sense when you watch the movie. And this film does feel a little bit skeletal at times. I understand that that's partially the intent of it, but I do wish that it had a little bit more richness in terms of the themes and in terms of the characters as well, so that these memories could be explored in a more kind of potent way, in a way that would resonate with the ghost. But also, as I said, this is a movie about fleeting memories and how we usually remember the little moments instead of the big picture. We remember hugs, we remember things like a record playing in the background, a door closing, etc. There's also a monologue later in the film that is at a party, and it's all about existence. And I fucking hated that monologue so much. Yeah, I mean, look, I talk like that when I'm drunk too, but in terms of just a narrative decision, I feel like it was way too on the nose. It basically just spelled out everything that the film was trying to say. It was like the director, the writer, was trying to kind of work out what the film meant to him. And we don't need that. We don't need it to be spelled out. It should be kind of embedded within the film, within the themes. But overall, I was really intrigued by this film. I have to say, I do want to see it again, because the more I think about it, the more it kind of, I think fondly of it, and it is still kind of lingering in my mind, and I think that is exactly what the director intended. So I do recommend this movie. And that is my review. Thank you all for listening. All of my social media information is here. You can watch my videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.